But why? Why would history have anything to do with what's going on in your life right now? Let me share with you 3 reasons why it's history that's holding you back. And the first one has to do with how long we now live. Our generation, the people who are currently in their 40s and 50s and even edging into 60s, are expected to live longer than almost any generation before. Our life expectancy is up in the high 80s. We know many people now that live to 90s to 100. We could have genuinely got to the midpoint in our lives. Not close to the end, but the midpoint. And that's new. Historically, up until 150 years ago, people were not expected to live beyond what we now call midlife. And so there's no history of what you do next, because there is no next. You were expected to live your life up until the point of mid-40s. If you were lucky, you lived till you were 50. At the very most, you might live till you were 60, and a very, very long life was 70. But that was rare. So your generation, our generation, are living longer. But it's the first time. So what do you do when nothing before has given you any idea that there is a future, something else, something more? And the second reason that history holds you back, not you, but history, especially if you're a woman, is that women have only even had the vote for just over 100 years. That's 2 generations. And that vote didn't mean that we had the ability to transform our lives at every moment, to feel liberated and capable and able to break through glass ceilings. Nothing of the kind. There were still limitations. So your generation, still my generation, is the first to start doing things differently, to have more. Having the vote was just the first step. And the third reason that history holds you back is that despite having the vote, it took another 50 years before women were actually entitled to work beyond having children, to be allowed to actually stay in the workforce and continue to work and not be expected to give it all up at 30 or 20 even. And so women of the generations before us, our parents, haven't really been much of a precedent. We are the precedent. There aren't that many role models who guide the light for us, to show us what's possible. What do you do when you get to 40 or 50 or even 60 and you feel physically, you feel great, but maybe there are little signs that you're not feeling so great, but you know that you look at your parents in their 80s or their 90s, you see how long it is likely you will live, and you wonder 2 things. Is this all there is? Can I do more? If so, how? What on earth do I do now? And not knowing the answer to that question makes you feel stuck, but it's not your fault you don't have the answer to the question, because there is no precedent. History has made it so. And so you might ask, well, if history is leaving me stuck, what can I do? And the answer is, you can be the precedent. You can start creating a pathway, but using the neuroplasticity, the neural pathways within your mind that we've recently come to realize are more powerful than we ever believed, to transform your life now, to choose what comes next, to craft a future that may be different from everything you've done till now, that may be the first time that you finally do what you want to do, that you fulfill a destiny, even if you're not sure what that destiny is, that your voice is heard, that you make a difference, that you feel alive, like you're living life to its fullest now. You are the precedent. And if that feels overwhelming, that you become the precedent because history has not given you anything else other than confusion and overwhelm and stuckness and frustration, you can take heart, because there are more women choosing to make a difference in midlife. And if you'd like to be one of those who joins them in crafting a pathway that works for you, in crowding out the noise of frustration and stress and anxiety that confuses and bewilders and overwhelms when you're concerned about elderly parents or young adults of children, then there is a path you can follow. And if you haven't already considered it, take a look today at the Midlife Reinvention Program, which is designed for women like you and me. Because when I was a child, my mother did stop work when she was just in her 30s. When she had me, that was it. She was done. She was not expected to be in the workforce anymore, except a little part-time work, just for pin money. And I could see the frustration. Even though my mother never spoke about it, I could see the frustration in every sinew of her being, of thinking, is this it? Is this my life? And she only began to live her life really on her terms, on doing what she wanted, in the way that she wanted, when she was in her late 70s and my dad, bless him, had gone. But what was truly sad for my mother was that she started living her life in her mid-70s and then was cut short physically by a stroke 4 years later. So you see, her reinvention was short-lived. And I know there was so much more she wanted to do. And we have the opportunity. We are the precedent. We don't have to be held down by history of how long we're expected to live, or whether we can join the workforce or not join the workforce, whether we're entitled to earn as much or not earn as much, whether we can vote or not vote. We have a choice. You can choose to reinvent, and I choose to reinvent. And who knows what tomorrow will hold, but it will be bigger and it will be better and it will be exciting and a little bit scary. So if you'd like to explore using the power of your mind, the neuroplasticity, to build new neural pathways so that you can be the precedent, to start making the difference you really want to make, to be heard, then check out the link below. And maybe today could be the day you begin your reinvention so that you create the precedent for the generations that follow and you change history.